Hi guys, so I'm going to continue my reflection on speaking a second language from last week. Last week it was just kind of like an introduction to the different steps and the different approaches kids take to learn a second language. And in chapter 4, it kind of continues on in more detail about step 3, which is when they actually start using this new language that they have learned. Speaking a second language is something that could be very difficult as the child gets older. In this week's readings, it had different examples of different types of cognitive and development in regards to reading. But I really wanted to focus on the third step of speaking a second language because this is actually something near and dear to my heart, as I've mentioned previously. There are two different types of speech that are formulated within step 3, and it's telegraphic and formulatic speech. Basically, telegraphic speech refers to the use of few content words as an entire utterance. This type of speech is also typical of a period of language when the children are very young. So basically, if a child does not know what the word is, for example, in the book it used an example of an adult asking the child, what is this? And the child was not sure what the word was. It wasn't Play-Doh because it wasn't Play-Doh that the adult was pointing at. So then the adult went ahead and said bridge. The child just went ahead and repeated it. So basically, it kind of seems like during telegraphic speech, they're using very short, almost no sentence structure. It just kind of seems like they're just using simple words. Car, and then they'll say car, for example, and then they'll elaborate. You could elaborate for the child and say a fast car, a racing car, just so that the child gets an understanding of how to use this word in different sentences and different sentence structures, which then actually moves into formulatic speech, which it's the use of formulatic speech has been documented by research studying young second language learners. This strategy most extensively detailed by actually Wong Fillmore. I thought that was pretty interesting to mention on there. And it's just basically unanalyzed chunks or formalic phrases in situations which others have been observed to use them. So they're not really sure how to use it. They'll just use a chunk of a sentence that they've heard before and kind of just reuse it again. They put different examples here. For example, the child saying okay, 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 or stop, stop, stop. And these are probably sentences that they've heard their classmates pretty much say throughout the time that they've been there, and then they just start using it in the context that they feel it fits. Let me see. Children, while they're going through this phase, they've already passed the phase in which they're silent, the silent phase. They're actually just speaking and trying to make sense of words by repeating phrases that they've heard previously. This I've seen happen in person. I've seen children, for example, I worked at a preschool for a period of time as an assistant director, and the preschool, unfortunately, I felt that they were lacking in certain areas, but that's aside the point. There were students in the preschool that were trying to learn English as a second language. They came from a Hispanic home, parents only speak Spanish, and they were trying to learn English for the first time. And I would actually see them do this, go through these phases, and see them going through the phase where they would just completely shut down, and then finally start pointing and saying red and green, apple, things, very simple words, to saying 2-word sentences, fast car, red ball. And it was an amazing process to be able to see the kids expand and learn so quickly, because I'm talking about this was just a few months of them being in the preschool where they learn these simple colors, simple words, And I feel that something that truly helped them the most was having other kids around them, having other their peers there to show them, to explain to them. A lot of the peers there spoke English and Spanish, so they were able to understand the children when they were talking in Spanish to them. But a lot of the time, most of them spoke English as a primary language, so they'll respond to them sometimes in English. And you'd see the confusion in the child that didn't speak English face, but then they started grasping onto the concepts, grasping onto these words and phrases that the other kids would say, and you'd hear them repeat them, sometimes out of context. Sometimes they wouldn't use the right pairing of words, but they were trying. And all it simply took was for the teacher to kind of redirect them and show them how to properly use those words and those phrases. There's actually another section within this chapter alone that again outlines the periods of the learning a second language. And I feel that this chapter was just completely focused on the telegraphic and formulatic use of the words. And I really can't wait to get into the productive use of words, where they're actually using sentences, full sentence structure, to go ahead and converse with other students and adults and, well, their community around them in their new language. Those are my thoughts on the readings this week. The other two readings were interesting, but definitely this one got my attention the most because it is something that I feel is very necessary to know, how to be able to interact with children when they're going through these phases, and that's why I kind of focused on this reading the most. But yeah, those are my thoughts, opinions, and bye. Talk to you guys soon.